Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. This week, there were some developments in the ANC that are worth unpacking. The ANC provincial leadership in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng province were restructured, reconfigured, re-amalgamated, reshaped. The story matters because it gives us a picture of where things may be heading for the next elective conference of the ANC, which is in 2027. Now, let's be aware and let's be honest and cognizant of the realities. There have been tensions and there's been jostling between various leaders in the ANC currently as they try to jockey for the frontrunner position for the next elective conference. The ANC actually at this time in history finds itself approaching an important inflection point. Thus far, the party has been led by the old guard, Nelson Mandela, Thabo Mbeki, Jacob Zuma, Cyril Ramaphosa. These are names of leaders who've been leading the ANC also in a period during the apartheid days and into the advent of democratic South Africa. They are truly, by all terms of the definition, the old guard. The next election will be different though. It will see those who came into positions of leadership post-1994 actually vying and jostling for leadership of the party, many of whom do not have the same kind of struggle credentials as the older leaders, many of whom do not have the same relationships with capital and the new landlords in Stellenbosch, the oligarchs of the South African economy. Many of the old leaders developed relationships during CODESA, during the 80s, and those relationships allow them to navigate the political realities of post-independent South Africa. But these new guys coming in don't necessarily have the same claim to fame, same claim to legacy, and the same kind of gravitas in terms of the South African history as it has been told thus far. This is what makes the next election for the ANC leadership interesting. The ANC elective conference that's coming up is also different because it will happen at a time when the ANC has been losing support and there are new viable challengers on the scene who are taking significant vote share from the party and could actually overtake the party outright. The older voters, the older generation of voters are passing away. The grandmothers, the grandfathers, the people who were voting for the ANC in 1994, they're not necessarily going to be around in 2029, in 2034. That generation of voters is leaving the earthly plane and moving to the ancestral plane. And there's no branches in the ancestral plane, right? You sit on trees there with the other Wakandians, but you don't have a chance to vote, right? So those voters are going. And the ones who are going to have a bigger and bigger say are a new generation of voters who have lived under the ANC for 31 years and are not particularly sympathetic to the ANC and don't have the same kind of loyalties that people had to Nelson Mandela, to ANC, because of the liberation struggle and liberation struggle credentials. That's the reality. That's what we're going into now. After the 2024 election last year, two camps emerged. Those who are pro-government of national unity, and that is the Ramaphosa-aligned faction. It includes people like Fikile Mbalula, Ronald Lamola, Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, and others. The other faction of the ANC was extremely opposed to the GNU. This faction has, as its most prominent figure, Andrek Panyaza Lesufi. Yes, his first name is Andrek. This is why he doesn't like AfroForum. He doesn't like them because his name is Andrek and he's trying to be revolutionary. Anyway, he doesn't use Andrek much, so I won't use it either. But I just thought it was interesting. That's his first name. Panyaza outmaneuvered the Democratic Alliance and excluded them from the provincial coalition. While the Democratic Alliance managed to get powerful positions in the KwaZulu-Natal cabinet, they were not able to get the same level of success and influence in Gauteng. Panyaza and Lesufi worked around them and managed to form a government without them. Then he worked with Action SA to get the DA mayor of Tshwane removed. Then he pushed against the Democratic Alliance and AfroForum and fought for the full implementation of the Bella Act. So you'll find voices like Panyaza Lesufi anti-GNU. You'll find voices like the South African Communist Party, which is a member of the tripartite alliance in the ANC, also being vocal against the coalition. So there is a grouping within the ANC that has said, we're not for this GNU. We don't like it. We don't like the recipe. We don't like the characters. There's that one meme where there's a guy who's standing outside saying, I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't like the way you walk. I don't like the way you talk. I don't like the way you move. I don't like the way you blink. I don't like the way you eat. That's basically what some of the people have been around the GNU. Of course, they'll be diplomatic and say various things that kind of bring them closer because it's still a decision that was made by the party. But those are, I think, in the long and short of it, those can be considered to be the factions. It became clear then after, Panyaza Lesufi made all of these moves, and while he was making these moves, that there were some in the GNU faction, the Government of National Unity faction, who were not happy with Panyaza Lesufi and his routing of the DA and his public criticisms of the GNU. Fikile Mbalula actually made a move. It was an aggressive move, a bold move, and ultimately it was a poorly calculated move. In October last year, it was reported that the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula attempted to institute disciplinary proceedings against the ANC Gauteng leader and Premier Panyaza Lesufi for his criticism of the National Coalition government. Mbalula failed dismally in that effort, and Lesufi was able to defend himself with support from people within the top seven, including Paul Mashatile. So that was the first attempt to do something about this anti-GNU faction. But concurrently, there was an attempt also to disband the provincial executive committees in Gauteng and in KwaZulu-Natal. And this faced fierce opposition from the leaders of the two provinces, as it had implications and has implications for the leadership races in the ANC for the future. From August 2024, there was discussion about disbanding the two provinces. But because of opposition, this conversation moved slowly. The argument which was pushed by Fikile Mbalula to disband the provinces was that, if you think about it, they had lost significant support in the elections, and as a result, they needed to be disbanded because of that poor performance. Politically, what this would have meant is that he would have had more control. His power as the Secretary General would have been strengthened by making such a big move, dissolving entities where his rivals also are leading would have made him even stronger. So there was an ulterior or a concurrent motive that existed for Fikile Mbalula to actually push for this particular thing. If you look at KwaZulu-Natal, it's the ANC's biggest province in terms of membership numbers, but it was the province that was most affected by the tsunami of Zuma, the MK party, right? ANC in KwaZulu-Natal dropped from 54.2% to 17%, while the MK party won 45% of the provincial vote. So that's a significant drop for that party. If you think about that, 34% in one electoral cycle, that's significant. Gauteng, it has a unique position in that it's the province with the most registered voters, with 6.4 million registered voters, or 23.45% of all registered voters living in Gauteng. The ANC got 34.5% of the votes in 2024, which was about 1.36 million. And this was a drop of 15.7% from 52% that they obtained in 2019. And that 50.2% in 2019 represented about 2 million votes, 2.17 million votes. So clearly, there was an underperformance by the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal and the ANC in Gauteng. And using that argument, Fikile Mbalula then said, no, we have to disband these teams. We have to change the leadership because the performance is poor. At face value, there's merit to the argument that was being made by Mbalula. Poor leadership necessitates change. But the counter-argument was raised, and that counter-argument was that why is the national leadership being exempted from the same scrutiny and the same analysis? It was under President Ramaphosa that the ANC went from 62% to 57% to 40%. So 22% losses under President Ramaphosa. So if the argument is true at the provincial level, how can it not be true at the national level? The argument was made that some of the issues which affected voter sentiments and voter turnout were issues of a national nature. not provincial nature. Issues like high inflation, issues like cost of living, issues like crime, issues like high unemployment, issues like low growth. These were issues of a macroeconomic nature, issues which were determined by the executive and issues which tracked back to the offices of the president. So the argument that was being presented was, well, if you say it's true that we did badly and you want to remove us, why ninga keep nalaba bantu? Why don't you remove these other people as well? Because they also did badly. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. What's chakalaka for the biryani is chakalaka for the pap and chicken. That metaphor doesn't work, but you get what I'm trying to say. You get what I'm trying to say, right? It's good. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Okay. So that was the argument that was made. And you could see that there was an understanding that there's truth and there's merit to this. And the conversation moved slowly. In January, it accelerated a little bit because there was a heated 2-day meeting of the NEC of the ANC in Boksburg. And the proposal to disband the provincial executive committees was adopted. But according to reports, it faced significant opposition. It was reported that 54 people were totally against disbandment, while 34 were for it. 29 people were for the disbandment of Gauteng, and 48 were for the disbandment of KwaZulu-Natal. And obviously the arguments are different for KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. The leadership in KwaZulu-Natal is not really that popular in terms of within the ANC, and also they did poorly, and there was a lot that was happening in KwaZulu-Natal where people were like, we're not happy with these guys. But when it comes to the leadership in Gauteng, that was different. A lot of people were happy with the leadership in Gauteng and willing to continue with that leadership. That's why you see that 29 people were for disbandment of Gauteng versus 48 for disbandment of KwaZulu-Natal. But as a result of these divisions and frictions, there were delays to the disbanding of the provinces. And then it also got reframed, not as a disbanding, but as a reconfiguration. That's why we're now in a reconfiguration, recomposition, reconstellation, rejigging. All of the re's except for disbandment. All the re's. Riri, Rihanna, whatever you want to call it, it's not a disbandment. It's a something. Right. So what do we know now? The ANC in Gauteng has a new leadership structure. The leadership structure will be led by Amos Masondo, who's age 71, who will hold former chairperson Panyaza Lesufi's hand as he comes in as the co-convener. Masondo is the former mayor of Johannesburg and recently the deputy chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. This is what Panyaza Lesufi had to say about all of the developments. Let's listen.
The question was, I think the ANC will forever assign us. And in assigning us tasks, I don't think the ANC will do so if you are not capable and able to execute those tasks. So I've been given a new task. To me, it's refreshing, exciting, but most importantly, it overstretches our capabilities so that we can be in a position to respond to all the issues our SGS just outlined. The SGS outlined what needs to happen. And in the period where we are in the African National Congress, if you are identified to be amongst those that have to execute this task, it's in it at only. And we want to take that way and want to convince ourselves that we work together as a collective to attend to all these practical issues. In terms of government, we've never had any problem. Wherever there is an opportunity to consult the ANC, we do so at any moment. And I don't think that's something that will change. Where there's an agent need to consult or agent need to get mandate or guidance from the ANC, it will happen as you choose to have. So there are no major drastic changes at that particular level. Even the statement that was issued by our SG after the ANC, there's not regular for it, was the exercise. Thanks so much. Thanks.
From the body language of Panyaza Lesufi, you can tell that the man is not happy. The man is putting up a brave face. And if you saw the pictures of the meeting, pictures were coming out of that meeting and you could tell, no, cadres are not happy. And listening to Mbalula in the full press conference, he spoke about skirmishes. There were some skirmishes and we heard that there was a full contingent of police outside the venue, etc., etc. So it was an agitated situation. As a member of the ANC, I would be concerned, if I was, that these skirmishes and divisions were emanating at this particular point, because the party needs to get to a united front, and they are trying to put across a united front. And Panyaza understands that there's no way at this particular point that he can rebel against this move. He now has to change strategy. He has to change gears. 2026 is far away. 2027 is still far away. You have to position yourself, but at the same time, you have to keep your powder dry. This is what Fikile Mbalula had to say about Panyaza Lesufi when he was asked by the media. And, people were going to ask him about this because these are the two rivals who are sitting, acting like, no, it's kumbaya, they're holding hands, but at the same time, those hands are being squeezed. Like, there's an arm wrestle in the holding of hands. Anyway, this is what Mbalula had to say.
The ANC leadership have shown a vote of confidence in Panyaza's leadership in government. And that is why he's retained. Because anything other than that would have shown that we don't have confidence in his leadership in government or otherwise. Overwhelmingly, our leadership have endorsed Comrade Panyaza to work with a veteran of the ANC, Comrade Amos Masondo, who will be focusing on organizational issues, particularly his experience in terms of elections and organizing skills. That is good. And we know that they will complement each other very well. And Comrade Panyaza himself must know that our leadership has never been in doubt of his capabilities as our premier in this province. And we want that it must sink and be very clear that he's doing a good job together with his team in government. And yesterday he delivered a very practical state of the province, and which we believe that with the work done, this province will even be better and better under his leadership. So I just wanted to make that point that we are confident to him, his capabilities, his energy, his foresight in terms of leading our people in this province.
It's tough. You can tell even Mbalula there, he's giving the compliments, but he's rebellious in the spirit. That's what it looks like to me. I mean, he's giving Panyaza compliments, and he has to. He's the Secretary General of the party, but you can tell that there are rivalries. So in KwaZulu-Natal, these are the names of the members of the party's reconfigured provincial leadership. They are Mike Mabuyakulu, Jeff Radebe, Smoniso Duma, Weziwe Tusi, Nomakuku Simelane, and Nomsa Dube Ngube. They will take over the provincial leadership responsibilities from the Provincial Executive Committee, which led the party at the time of the May general elections. Former Premier Mike Mabuyakulu was appointed as the coordinator, Nomsa Dube as the deputy coordinator, Jeff Radebe as the convener. It's Khatebe, right? Not Rateb. Khateb. Former Social Development Minister Wesizwe Tusi as the first deputy convener, and Sboniso Duma as the provincial convener. So you can see they're still trying to keep these guys within particular roles. Bheki Mtolo will be the convener of policy planning and monitoring. Mbalula said Mtolo will remain on the ANC's payroll until his initial term as then provincial secretary ends. So they're trying to make sure that cadres are taken care of. Mbalula said, no one will be thrown to the streets here. We've got everyone on board. He added that the provincial task team would be reviewed. He said they've been given clear tasks, auditing all structures of the province and acting decisively. He said their program will be monitored by the national officials. So here's where I think this leaves things right now within the ANC. Number one, I think the Cyril Ramaphosa faction, the pro-GNU faction, now has more oversight in the room of the provinces that they were worried about, KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. And if you consider someone like Jeff Radebe being put on the team in KwaZulu-Natal, I mean, that tells you that they will have an eye on things, right? He's the brother-in-law of President Cyril Ramaphosa, for those who are watching from outside the country and may not know that information. And somebody who has been put in various positions where Cyril Ramaphosa really wants to have a trusted ally in the room. For instance, at some point he was envoy in the DRC, negotiating and discussing things in the DRC for President Cyril Ramaphosa. So that's somebody who's significant and gives them oversight. Even when you look at the Amos Masondo appointment at 71, he's not really there to do anything. He's there to keep an eye on Panyaza so that Panyaza doesn't Panyaza them, if you get what I'm trying to say. I think the second thing I want to say is that this is a stalemate of sorts. The decision to disband got renamed. They didn't remove them. They diluted their influence. And all of this was also done in a way to remove connotations of Mbalula victory. So this reconfiguration, it's something for everyone, but nothing for everyone at the same time. It's just a stalemate. It's a stalemate. This was due to a recognition that removing key players in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng at this point would demoralize the ANC, potentially lead to movement towards the MK party and the EFF. These days, politicians have options outside of the ANC. There was also a recognition, I think, when it comes to Gauteng, of the power and influence that Panyaza Lesufi has in the Gauteng province at this point. He remains a key player in South African politics and the ANC politics, and he is a contender for one of the future presidents of South Africa. So, knowing his power and influence, removing him at this point would be strategically foolish. And there's an appreciation of that. There's an appreciation that Mbalula may not be the answer and that Mabuyane may not be the answer even. So you have to keep Panyaza. He's trying things, whether you like them or not. He's trying the wardens. He's announcing Gautrain to Soweto, etc. He's repeated a lot of those promises, right? He's been implicated indirectly in some scandals. You know, there are valid criticisms, but at the same time, he's popular with the grassroots. He's a guy who understands the infrastructure in Gauteng and he's on the ground, whereas Fikile Mbalula is not necessarily on the ground in the same way that Panyaza is. So there's a recognition of that, and it would have been a kamikaze operation to remove Panyaza at this particular point for the ANC. It would have been an implosion. So this is a stalemate, these co-convener titles, keeping the same people from the old provincial executive committees in these new reconfigured, rejigged, re-amalgamated entities after having blamed them for the losses last year. That's where the contradiction can be spotted, right? Because you blame them for the losses, but you're keeping them, meaning that maybe you don't actually blame them as much, or you realize that you can't remove them outright. It is a dilution of power, however, and you can tell from the videos, these reports of skirmishes, that Panyaza was not happy about these developments. In a way, it does, take away some of the momentum that he felt that he has, right? I think that the stalemate gives everyone time to fight another day, right? And we'll have to see how the developments play out as the weeks and months go on. But as things stand right now, because it's a stalemate, everyone can go lick their wounds, reevaluate PT and come back stronger, maybe with better strategies and tactics. We'll have to see. What's going to be interesting is to see what Fikile Mbalula will do if the ANC loses support in 2026. Before this reconfiguration, the responsibility for electoral losses in the local government elections would have lied directly with Panyaza Lesufi and his guys, and also with Peggy Mtolo and those guys there, Muniso Duma in KZN. Now the responsibility will be Mbalula's, because he's the one who pushed for this reconfiguration. He's the one who put his name on it. So if they lose support, people will come back and say, no, we were on track. Then you reconfigured, you rejigged, you restructured, re-amalgamated, remixed us. And then Mbalula frustrated us. And now look. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. It may end up hurting his prospects for 2027 and not helping them. My current reading of this race actually is that these Fikile Mbalula and Panyaza Lesufi tensions are a proxy fight. They're a proxy fight. Remember Cold War, there were proxy fights in Angola, in DRC, in many other places, America, China and Russia fighting, right? But mostly America and the USSR. They were fighting through these proxy entities, right? And I think that's what's happening here. I actually don't think that Fikile Mbalula and Panyaza are contesting for president. I think the real contenders could be Oscar Mabuyane and Paul Mashatile, right? And this is because these were the two men who faced each other at the last conference fighting for the position of deputy president. Paul Mashatile won by 320 delegates, which is close. Remember, he got 2,178 votes. Oscar Mabuyane got 1,858 votes. Lamula got 300 and something votes, 315, right? He's often mentioned as well in the race and seems to be the preferred candidate of Cyril Ramaphosa. He likes him. He's put him in various key positions, various key cabinet positions. But the reality is that Ronald Lamula did poorly at the last ANC conference. He only got 315 delegates. 315. That's not much. Performing that badly at the last conference tells me that he doesn't really have much prospects as a candidate outright for the main ticket, presidency of the party. Even if he gets money, even if the whole of Stellenbosch backs him, coming from this low base, I don't think he'll be able to do it. What this suggests that his prospects are slim, meaning that the race could realistically be between Oscar Mabuyane and Paul Mashatile. And Fikile Mbalula and Panyaza Lesufi are most likely positioning themselves to run for the ANC vice presidency position. And that can secure you for president going forward. But the dynamics are shifting. It's unclear whether any of these combinations will be enough to bring the ANC back above 50%, or whether the declines will continue going into the next race, and then they'll have to form coalitions, maybe with the MK, with the EFF or DA. Fikile Mbalula prefers a DA coalition. Panyaza Lesufi, I don't think, is married to that idea, as we've seen. He may be one to work without the DA, without being beholden to them, which is why we've seen such tensions between him and the Democratic Alliance. I don't know, what do you guys think? I think it's a significant story. This week was so busy, so much happened, that this one didn't get as much attention as it deserves, but it's still one of the key stories coming out of this week. Let's have a conversation in the comments. What do you think? Who do you prefer as, if you're an ANC supporter, next presidential candidate for the party? Is it Mashatile? Is it Mabuyane? Is it Lamula? Is it Mbalula? Is it Lesufi? Where do you stand? Let's have a conversation. Announcement about the book club coming tomorrow. Watch out for that. That's going to be announced soon. Till the next one.